Before we all went into quarantine and social distancing, we started this semester on death. We started with John's proclaim on Memento Mori, and he began his proclaim with our relationship with our time. Our relationship with time is funny. Most of the times we want more time with our friends or with our family, more time to study, or more free time to enjoy. Often we see time as an enemy. However, if we embrace life as God intended, time can be a great friend. How we spend our time is now an investment, who we will be later, and who we will spend with eternity.
John then introduced us to Memento Mori. Memento Mori is a Latin phrase meaning remember your death or remember that you will die. The fact that we die shouldn't be new. Memento Mori is just a new way of looking at it. Memento Mori is a practice to help order our lives. Now, death is a difficult reality for us all. We fear it for loved ones and for ourselves, but God never intended for us to suffer death. We only experience it as a result of sin. Sometimes people try to comfort others with, "It was God's will," or "Everything happens for a reason." While said with good intention, these can make the sting of death worse because it places the blame on God for pain in our lives. It is important not to dismiss the pain of death because it is not what God intended, nor is it natural or expected of us. By dying on the cross, Jesus transformed death into something that works for our good. Grief is an important part of death, however. This goes back to our baptism. When we were baptized, we were sprinkled with holy water. In that moment, we die in our old self, who was stained with original sin and unable to enter the kingdom of God and be his son and daughter. We're given the opportunity to share in his life for all eternity. In baptism, we died with Christ sacramentally, and our physical death completes this process with a new life with him. Baptism doesn't guarantee eternal life, however. It is our responsibility to live in a way that grace of the sacrament can grow in us. Memento Mori is one way to take out that responsibility. It might seem depressing to think about it this way, but simply by remembering our own death, we can orient our temporary lives towards life beyond death.
Memento Mori is rewarding our lives in a healthy way to understand that we are going to die and to be ready for it whenever it happens. So how do we practice Memento Mori? We sacrifice our time, our needs, our wants, desires, money, work, through good deeds and acts of Christ. This can be done in the smallest actions, obeying our parents, helping out around the house, or listening to someone when maybe you really don't want to, or by helping out at shelters, going on mission trips, and fighting for those less fortunate. In all, you're basically living like it's Lent every day.
A week after John's proclaim, Zach gave us an insight into what hell is with his proclaim, Hellbound. He gave us a pretty blatant definition of it. He said sin prevents us from feeling and receiving God's love, and that's what hell is. God told Adam and Eve they can eat from any tree except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. For when they eat from that tree, they should die. God meant literal death, but not instantaneous death. This choice to disobey God allowed sin to enter the world and death along with it. The church teaches that hell is real, and its existence is not contrary to God's love. He will always offer us the grace we need, but we must accept it. Heaven is also real. Saints can interact with us and our world, but we cannot see it, describe it, or even fully comprehend it, because we were made to interact with the physical world through our bodies with our souls capable of entering heaven. We all have different images of heaven, and while they capture part of it, they ultimately fall short. All beauty and joy we know is a reflection of what could be experienced in heaven.
Heaven is the ultimate fulfillment of the deepest human desires. These may be things we are even aware of. We ought to strive to have better prayer time and love God more in our daily actions and choices. But in heaven, we fully experience God's love in a way that cannot be described with human language, senses, or even emotions. We know people are in heaven, and that these people are saints. They have achieved what we strive for, to get into heaven. On the other hand, the church will never declare if someone is in hell.
The only reason we can enter heaven is because of Jesus' sacrifice. Through God's grace might we enter into heaven, into his eternal love. God doesn't send people to hell. We choose it by putting ourselves before him. We make choices every day which alter our life for better or for worse. We can choose virtue or we can choose vice. We are all worthy of redemption, yet we cannot live as though our actions do not have consequences. If we do not choose God's love, we are hellbound.